So what if the US political system was never actually meant to be perfect? Today, we're digging into a really fascinating idea from our source material, the concept that the system wasn't designed for some ideal world, but for the messy, flawed, and imperfect one we all actually live in.
You've probably heard this before, right? Someone calls the US political system the least bad option. And honestly, it sounds a little cynical, like a bad joke. But our source material makes a bold claim. This isn't a flaw we should apologize for. It's actually the system's most profound and, get this, intentional feature.
So what does that actually mean, to be the least bad option? Well, that's the big question we're unpacking in this explainer, and the answer, as you'll see, is surprisingly deep.
Look, this whole least bad philosophy didn't just happen by accident. Nope. It was a deliberate choice, and it's rooted in a very specific way of looking at two huge ideas: the nature of ultimate authority and, well, the nature of humanity itself.
These are the two pillars holding up the entire structure. First, you have to ask, where does ultimate power really come from? And second, what are we, as human beings, fundamentally like? The system's architects had some very pointed answers to both of those questions.
All right, let's tackle that first principle. The foundational idea here is that ultimate power, I'm talking about true sovereignty, and our most basic rights, they come from a source that is way beyond and way above any human government.
And that brings us to this big word, sovereignty. Supreme power. The founding philosophy of the system was pretty radical for its time. It basically said that no king, no president, no government gets to claim ultimate authority. That power was reserved for a creator, which put a sacred limit on all human power right from the very beginning. We've all heard this famous line from the Declaration of Independence, but it's not just some pretty poetry. It is a massive political and philosophical statement. It's saying your rights are not a gift from the government. They were yours before the government ever showed up.
The logic here is absolutely crucial. See, if our rights come from a creator, then the government's only legitimate job is to protect them. It means no human ruler can ever claim to be absolute. And the big takeaway? All human power has to be limited, period.
Okay, this leads us right into that second foundational principle. And this, for me, is where it gets really interesting. And yeah, maybe a little pessimistic. The whole system is built on a deeply, deeply realistic view of human nature.
Drawing on ideas, like original sin, the system's architects started with the core assumption: people are not angels. Far from it. We are all, every one of us, prone to selfishness, to pride, and to that temptation to abuse power whenever we get it. No one gets a pass.
James Madison just nailed it with this line. Seriously, this one sentence is the key to understanding the whole design. Because people aren't angels, you need a government. But, and here's the kicker, because the people in the government aren't angels either, that government has to be controlled.
So what do? You can't just cross your fingers and hope the people in power will be saints. Instead, you have to build a system that cleverly uses a basic human flaw, ambition, as a check on itself. You literally have to pit power against power. And here's the blueprint for how they did it. First, you separate the government into three branches, right? So the ambition of Congress checks the president's ambition, and the courts check them both. Second, you divide power up and down between a central government and state governments. That's federalism. And third, you just write down a list of things the government is flat out forbidden to do. That's your Bill of Rights. This quote from Thomas Jefferson, wow, it sounds pretty cynical, doesn't it? But it gets right to the heart of the matter. The system isn't built on trusting leaders to do the right thing. It's built on a healthy suspicion, what he calls jealousy, that they might just do the wrong thing. So you put up guardrails, just in case.
So when you put all this together, what do you get? Well, it means the system has a surprisingly humble goal. It wasn't designed to build some kind of heaven on earth. It was designed to prevent hell on earth.
The contrast is just so stark. You've got utopian systems that promise perfection. They assume humanity can be perfected, and so they trust some central authority with a ton of power. This system, it does the exact opposite. It assumes humans are flawed, and because of that, it fundamentally distrusts all concentrated power. So think about this. It means that the stuff we always complain about, the gridlock, the loud arguments, the political fighting, in a way, those are features, not bugs. Now, of course, that stuff can be incredibly frustrating, but the system is designed to be slow and inefficient, specifically to stop any one group from just ramming its will down everyone else's throat. The goal is to manage disagreement peacefully, not to magically make it disappear.
And that brings us right to Winston Churchill's classic line, which just perfectly sums up this whole least bad idea. It admits that, yeah, it's messy, it's full of problems, but it's still the best guardrail we have against the worst parts of our own nature.
But here's the thing. This whole structure, designed for an imperfect world, it relies on something pretty fragile, a shared philosophical and moral foundation. And according to our source material, that foundation is starting to show some really serious cracks.
So here's the core problem as the source sees it. The cultural beliefs that gave birth to the system are fading away. That whole worldview, the one that sees rights as God-given and humans as flawed, well, it's just not a shared consensus anymore. So what does that actually look like in practice? Well, the belief in a creator and in a natural law of objective right and wrong, it's getting weaker. The very idea of rights is shifting away from being objective truths and more toward being subjective desires. And if you don't have that shared moral basis, politics is at risk of just becoming a raw power struggle, where whoever has the most power gets to define what rights mean for everybody else.
And this all leads to the source's really powerful conclusion. A political system, no matter how brilliantly it's designed, just can't survive without a culture that actually supports its core principles. And that culture, in turn, is fed by the beliefs of its people. You see? It's all connected.
Which leaves us with a final and pretty crucial question. This whole system was built on the humble idea that we are all flawed. So what happens when an imperfect people start to forget that fact? Thanks for joining us.